What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today's video is all about Colby Covington and the way that he comes across now. And I think he's just fallen from grace and hit an all-time low. And look, I'm generally the last person to pile on to a fighter for coming to this position or whatever it is. I generally across the board have a ton of respect for all the fighters in the UFC and try not to focus on these negative stories, but Colby is a little bit different. And the reason why I do want to talk about him like this is because I think he's put himself in this position. He's chosen to go down a dark route where he said really nasty things and continues to say nasty things about a lot of fellow fighters and disrespects them publicly. And I know some people will still defend him and say, hey, it's a shtick, it's a character, it's nothing to, not that big of a deal. But I think his words and the negative things he says, they really do have impact. And I know he's trying to drum up attention and buzz, but I think that he does damage to a lot of people. Leon Edwards is one in particular. I think the things that he said about Ian Garry have definitely caused some issues for Ian Garry and his wife and his family. And it's just like when you have this brand and this image and this, I guess you could say, PR strategy to go out and attack people these ways, but then you seem to be shying away from all these fights. It just, I think from the fan perspective and just from the fighter perspective too, because I know Justin feels similarly about Covington as well. It just rubs people the wrong way. And man, I don't know. I don't really respect it. So anyways, now we come to this most recent interview on Submission Radio. And I just kind of wanted to go through a bunch of different portions of this video and this interview where Colby's talking about Sean Brady and Leon Edwards. And then he talks about who he's looking for in new matchups. And when somebody has gone out and talked so confidently for so long about how they can beat everybody, and then he goes and fights Leon, and then he has all these excuses. And for a while, I thought the excuses were funny because I almost thought that he was in on the joke, that he was saying these ridiculous excuses, knowing that they were nonsensical, but just to kind of fuel the fire. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think he's really pushing these excuses out and trying to legitimize his loss in that way. And so what we're seeing is just this giant web of lies and nonsense with insults rolled in there. And I don't know. It's just aggravating. I think in general, when we see a lack of sincerity from the fighters, period, it makes it difficult to connect with the fighters. And at this point in Covington's career, where he continues to talk all this smack, but he's just shying away from fights that are clearly going to be the best for business, probably because he doesn't want to lose these particular fights. He's maybe losing his why. Justin talks about that all the time. Colby's already been an interim champ. He's fought Kamaru Usman twice, done tons of main events. Maybe he's just losing his why. Maybe I've heard from other fighters at MMA Masters that used to train alongside Colby Covington saying he's no longer pushing the envelope in training. So again, and by the way, he's probably left that gym, and there's evidence of that in this interview. So it sounds like another gym that either he's left or he's been kicked out of for whatever reason. So I think he's now at this point where he's just trying to squeeze the last few dollars out of the UFC before he's either cut or decides to retire due to injury or, whatever it may be. And he's looking for matchups that are favorable to him. Now, do I have a problem with fighters looking for matchups that they can win? No, I mean, that's a smart tactical decision, but it's not about that per se. It's just that coupled with his continuous talking and smack talking and saying negative things about other fighters, and then he's seemingly ducking all these fights where he'll lose and claiming he's doing the best for business, and just none of it makes sense. None of it's congruent. It's just aggravating. But anyways, let's start at the beginning. So let's first go to this initial clip where he's being asked about Sean Brady. So check this out.
He's still not a draw.
Or actually, wait, I think this is Sean. Yeah, this is on Sean Brady. So here, check this out.
Still doesn't draw flies to shit. So, I want to do good business for the company. Whatever the biggest and best fights that the company wants, that's what I'm on board with. If he's
The reason why I wanted to highlight this clip is because there is one fight that I think would still be best for business and was best for business. It's him fighting Ian Garry. So just pointing this out, that's clearly not what he's doing. He doesn't want to fight Ian Garry because it's an unfavorable matchup. Obviously, we all know this, but this is, again, just another point where Colby is just, I don't know, he's just grasping at straws, spewing out nonsense. And that's why I want to highlight this. Let me let it keep playing a little bit longer.
What's on board? Fine. It's a good matchup. He's not going to take me down and submit me. You know, it's going to be a striking fight. And as we saw in the fight with Bilal, remember the racist Muhammad, you know, we found out that kid has a glass jaw. So the fact that you got knocked out by Bilal, that kind of shows the company everything that you're made of. You're not anything special. So, you know, if the company wants me to end the hype, no problem. It's a pretty easy matchup.
Pretty funny. I mean, I just like, it's pretty obvious, I think, at this point that, I mean, Sean Brady is so good. He's the #1 contender. He would obviously smoke Colby. We all know that. It's just Colby doing his same old shtick, but it's just getting so old now that we know that it's just complete nonsense, especially after his last couple of performances. Okay, this next clip is, I think this is dealing with Leon Edwards. I can't remember exactly. Let me let it play, and I'll give you my comments afterwards.
Do you have any interest in the rematch with Leon Edwards? Because obviously you got injured the first time. You never really got a chance to properly fight him. What do you think should be next for Leon Edwards? And could it be you?
I'm not really worried, Dennis, about what's next for him. I'm worried about what's next for me. You know, like, I'm the biggest name in the welterweight division. So, you know, I'm going to get with the UFC. We're going to decide what the biggest and best business we can do. You know, there's a lot of people chirping. You know, you got that little kid from across.
Okay, let's pause it right here. Why wouldn't you want that Leon fight to right that wrong if he really felt like the whole thing was due to a broken foot? Leon is coming down. That could get Colby right back into title contention. But he's saying, I'm not worried about what's next for Leon. I'm worried about what's next for me, because that whole broken foot thing was nonsense. And it's annoying because I thought at first he was kind of in on the joke that, of course, it was not true. But I think he's really pushing that as a legitimate excuse. It's obviously nonsensical. And now he could actually, if he really pushed, I think he could get that rematch. I wouldn't be shocked. But he doesn't want it because he knows he's not going to beat Leon again. For whatever reason, his training has fallen off. Maybe he's suffered some more injuries. I don't know. For whatever reason, he's not confident in that rematch. And he doesn't want it. And that's the truth. But then look at who he's calling out next. This is so crazy. Okay, check this out.
Across the pond, you know, Paddy's starting to chirp some shit. We know.
Dude, Paddy said nothing about Colby. I've watched all these interviews. I love watching Paddy interviews and Paddy talk. I've not heard him mention Colby once. Now he's just completely fabricating an alternative reality.
He has trouble making lightweight. So, you know, that's a big fight we can do at welterweight. You know, we got Chandler running his mouth. He wants to come fight for the All-American title. So
when have we heard Chandler say, hey, would Chandler take that fight? I mean, I think he might, I guess. But it's just so funny how Colby's still talking all this, like, he's talking with all this energy, talking negatively about Sean Brady, not really wanting to acknowledge Leon. But the two people that apparently he's calling out are lightweights. And just wait till we get later in the video. The other people that he's calling out is absolutely crazy town. But this is what happens when you take on the role of the heel and you want to be the bad guy. And imagine if Conor McGregor, who kind of is like a semi-heel, anti-hero type of guy who talked a lot of smack about people. Imagine if he would have gone in there. Somebody mentioned the other day, like, what would have happened if Jose Aldo had beaten Conor? That would have probably been detrimental to the UFC. If we could just comparatively, I mean, it would have still been fine. It would have still been in business, but it wouldn't have had this huge spike. They probably wouldn't have sold it for $4.2 billion or whatever it was. But imagine, just from Conor's perspective, if he had lost that fight and just never was able to bounce back, but continued to talk heavy smack to everybody, it'd look ridiculous. But because he won that fight, because he then went on to beat Eddie Alvarez, it was just the perfect storm to make him a superstar. But now we have Colby trying to follow that blueprint, obviously not doing nearly as good of a job, because for him, it's like fake. He's just putting on this whole persona. It could have kind of worked if he would have beaten Kamaru Usman, and he wouldn't have reached the levels of Conor, but he could have had a much higher level of fame and star power. But because he wasn't able to pull it off and then has had this slide ever since and just keeps losing and losing, but he keeps pushing it harder and harder with that smack talk as he goes further down the rankings. This is what happens. You put yourself into a corner, and I guess you play the heel and you just can't give it up. This is what it ends up looking like. It just ends up looking completely nonsensical.
you know, I don't know. There's a fight coming to Miami very soon. We'll see what happens after Miami. Everybody knows I'm the king of Miami. This is my city. So you come to my city, I will find you. So a lot of options out there, but we're doing.
Okay. Anyways, so that's that where he is calling out 2 lightweights. And then the next person he calls out, this is amazing. So he's going from 2 lightweights, Paddy Pimblett, who's claiming has trouble making weight. He's never missed weight at all. I know we see him balloon up and down and all that stuff, but I don't think that's even happened for this camp. So, and yes, Paddy's big, but again, another made up lie from Colby. And then now look at who he's calling out next. Check this out.
Yeah, probably one of the Diaz brothers. They're big names. They're legends of the game. So they draw attention. You know, they sell pay-per-views and they get people.
The Diaz brothers. He's talking about Nate and Nick Diaz, who we just saw having all these issues in terms of his sobriety, or at least allegedly with his sobriety. Yeah, I mean, I do get what he's saying in the sense that maybe he's no longer chasing a title and he does want to fight legends. And if he can just be honest about that and just a little bit more upfront, I guess I can get behind that. Same thing with Dustin, right? He's not necessarily chasing the title. He's got a retirement fight. He said he wants to fight a legend like Matt, but he's fighting an active fighter is what the word is. He's fighting Max Holloway. So that's actually pretty cool. And that'll be a really fun fight. But yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy to me. Okay, but let's keep listening because it gets even crazier than fighting the Diaz brothers. Check this out.
People excited for fights. So that's what I want to fight, Dennis. I want to fight legends. You know, I've been world champion. I fought the best in the world for the last decade. So, you know, and I just did a favor for the UFC showing up on no notice. So, you know, I want to look for big fights, you know, not fights that do nothing for my career, not nobodies, you know, otherwise there's just no point. So, you know, the Diaz brothers would excite me. You know, if Paul Felder keeps running his mouth from the commentary booth, he's going to get slapped as well. That's so.
Now he's calling out a retired fighter, Paul Felder, who we all love in the commentating booth, at least I think, and now he's on the Michael Bisping podcast. But listen to what he says here. Again, it's that same negative talking where we might say, hey, this is a shtick and this is him just trying to drum up interest, but he's bringing up a personal event. Now, luckily for Paul Felder, this is something that he already brought up and addressed, which I'm going to play that clip right after that. So this is something that he's actually talked about publicly. But again, Colby has no boundaries, is willing to drag anybody's name through the mud just to get whatever I guess he's trying to get. Is he ever going to even get that Paul Felder fight? Probably not. Paul Felder, I don't think, is coming back, and I doubt he would come back for this fight. But just listen to what Colby says next.
Self-loathing.
What's going on? What's going on with Paul Felder, man? What's happening?
Dude, he was talking shit about me. He was saying some shit that, oh, he's done this and that and some other shit. Hey, Dennis, I want you to go ask him next time you see him in person. Ask him about the time we were at Joint Base Langley, Eustis, the Army and Air Force Base, and he got tied fucking in handcuffs by the military police to a toilet in his bathroom because he was drunk on the base. Like, that's embarrassing, you self-loathing drunk asshole. He must be drunk half the time he's in that commentary booth for the UFC. Man, I feel bad for the UFC. They need to get some new commentators. And what better man? I could be the UFC commentator.
That's bad. By the way, I'm going to show Paul Felder's response in a second, but that's actually really funny because you can tell also Colby's nearing the end of his career. He's looking for alternative ways to generate cash. He has started doing like social media postings and like all these live streams where he's streaming himself gambling, walking around. He's trying to build a YouTube channel. I've checked out his YouTube channel. I think it's I don't think it's very good, but like, it's pretty funny that he wants to do commentary because I just don't see that route, especially consider all the people he's pissed off. And that's the thing. He's played the heel. He's taken this avenue. Now he's trying to get these other opportunities, I guess, like Chael Sonnen, but I will be shocked if it works. Also, Colby has if you listen to him in interviews, speaking in general, he has trouble. He stumbles over his words all the time. So do I see him ever getting into the commentary booth for those previous reasons? Absolutely not. Too many people dislike him. Number one. Number two, I don't think he'd be very good whatsoever on the mic and in commentary. I think he'd have a really hard time. Definitely couldn't do play-by-play or anything like that. So it's kind of funny that he mentions that. But let's go now to Paul Felder's response. This is just hilarious. He's trying to stir up something with Paul Felder, and I think Paul Felder responds to it so perfectly. And he also gives clarity and explains the real truth of what Colby's talking about, because as we've come to expect, Colby fabricates a lot of things.
Yeah, but you already spoke about this, so this is great. Because otherwise he might have been dropping some kind of knowledge there. But you came out 2 weeks ago and told this story.
I told that exact story. And, you know, it's funny
That'll
because
do, Brian. Thanks,
you
buddy.
can almost
Thanks,
see
Brian.
him. You can almost see Colby start laughing when he starts saying that I was tied to a toilet with handcuffs at the base, because he knows that that part is completely made up. And you know what? To be honest, like Brian Butler tried to go on, my manager from when I was fighting, tried to go on. He did an interview and he tried to clear the air. Bro, I even told this to him the second it released. I said, you just made it so much worse. The fact that you're out there trying to do damage control, trying to even fuel this fire is exactly what he wants. That's all he's doing. He's just being Colby Chaos Covington, because he had another video that I was tagged in before he went and did this, where he was saying the same thing Harrington was saying, where somebody must have asked him, what do you feel about Felder saying that you're older, that you're nearing the end? And he even said, well, I'm 37. Like, he's just being an analyst. That's what these guys are supposed to do. I got love for Felder, nothing but respect, and mentioned being on the base and having respect. And then suddenly he's going to bring up that I was handcuffed to a toilet and all that. No, I broke a toilet. I broke a toilet by myself in my room because I was mad. And then they came to my room to calm my ass down. I calmed down. I moved rooms. I signed the toilet seat the next day as a plaque to my time there at the Joint Base. And I even called the guy, Alton, who was the guy that was kind of in charge of being between, who I mentioned before too. And he's like, oh man, I can't believe he's saying it. If you ever need me to back you up, I got you. What toilet? He's saying. What toilet?
Yeah.
So they got my back there.
This is
Anyway, so there's the real story from Paul Felder. He's taking it lightly. He says later on the show that if he sees Colby, there's going to be no problems. He might just be like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you saying that nonsense? But he's saying, hey, he's got no animosity from his side. But once again, this highlights another thing where Paul Felder is saying that Colby said in another interview initially, hey, this is no big deal. He's just being an analyst, not a big deal. But then Colby probably saw this as an opportunity maybe to try and get one more fight that may be favorable to him, because obviously Paul Felder's retired. So to bring him back, I think Colby feels, and Felder's older as well. So Colby feels like he might have a good shot against beating him. So then Colby just decides to once again be fake, not be authentic, and artificially manufacture this beef. It's just really lame. And I think one of the reasons too why it's so aggravating from my perspective is because he is talking all this smack about people. He went in deep on Ian Garry, his wife, his family. He said all of this crazy stuff, but for what? What was the point of all that? And then you won't take the fight. You're claiming you want to do the best business for the UFC. That was the best business, and you ducked it because I guess you thought it was unfavorable. You didn't want to lose. Maybe you thought that would be detrimental to your career. Now, once again, I want to state unequivocally that I'm all in favor of fighters being smart and strategic with their career, but it's just, I don't know. You tell me if you guys agree in the comments, but the way that he wants to play the heel, talk all this crazy stuff, talk about Leon's passed away father, and go to these deep, dark depths, and then have this sort of protocol when he's approaching fights to pick and choose so carefully and to dodge and avoid fights where he thinks he's going to be compromised, call out fighters where he feels he's probably going to have a weight and strength advantage and all these things. I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way. If you're going to say all those things, like, back it up, in my opinion, especially when you're not just talking smack, like you're going in deep on people, bringing up these personal negative stories and potentially damaging people's reputations in the eyes of the public, especially somebody like Felder. Think about that. He's front and center with the UFC, a commentator. He's got an image that he probably needs to maintain to some extent. Why are you bringing all this stuff up? Like, that has real ramifications. Anyways, last thing I wanted to show was this clip. I mentioned earlier that we saw at his last fight against Joaquin Buckley, he didn't have his MMA Masters coaching staff with him. Instead, he had Chael Sonnen and Hulk Hogan, which was hilarious. But clearly something has happened there. So now he left American Top Team. He probably got kicked out of MMA Masters, I'm assuming. And this is just, again, more evidence of that fact, and more evidence of the fact that I think maybe Colby has lost his why. He's no longer perhaps training as hard as he once was. Because listen to what he says here, where he's going to train for this next fight that he's trying to get with Paddy or whoever.
Yeah, you know, as long as I get a full training camp, like a good 12-week training camp, it's perfect. You know, I'm going to go, you know, do a training camp with Tim Welch and Sean O'Malley this go round. And I think those guys are going to get me more ready than I've ever been in my career. So I'm excited to get a training camp with them. but a full training camp. So end of summer, early fall.
So now he's jumping ship to Tim Welch and Sean O'Malley. I'm even surprised that I guess they would invite him. But hey, and by the way, we've seen Tim Welch and Sean O'Malley at the Fusion Fight events. So much respect for those guys. And I think they really dial it in across all areas of fighting when it comes to sleeping, nutrition, training. I think it would be great for Colby, I guess, if they're open to it and actually do invite him. I don't know if this is made up again, another made up thing that Colby's just fabricating, or if it's real. I guess if it's real, cool, good for him. And maybe this will actually get him back on track with a good training camp to make him competitive. Either way, whatever. The point is that once again, more evidence that he's jumped ship, probably because of his brand of trash talk. And also, I think this is again speculation, but I do think that, yes, he plays a quote unquote character, maybe hyping things up, but it seems that he just keeps rubbing people the wrong way. That's what it appears to be. He had a lot of problems at American Top Team, eventually left there. Now he's left MMA Masters. I mean, this is just pattern recognition. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree, disagree? What do you think of Colby's brand of smack talk at this point in his career, as he's nearing the end, as he's seeming to have difficulty competing with people in the top 5 or top 10? Is it also turning you off? Is it also rubbing you the wrong way? Are you still a fan of Colby? Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.